Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another social college and career pathway where every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 p.m. we provide you with information on various colleges and universities, financial aid resources, skilled trade professions, employment opportunities, career readiness skills, uh, technical schools, and training programs, all designed to help you make the best career decisions possible. Today, we are with Michigan Schools and Government and Credit Union, and we made a slight change in the presentation today. Today, we are doing leasing versus buying a new car. And Colleen, we are so glad to have you back. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. And this is a great topic. We're looking at kind of new cars, leasing or buying today. And then in a few days, we're going to look at used cars and or buying a used car. So I do have a fun video for you.
Whoa! Leasing or financing options available.
Can I help you?
Yeah, I want this, but I'm not totally clear on the difference between leasing and financing a spaceship.
Well, it's just like leasing or financing a new car, except this car happens to reach 50,000 miles per hour and can navigate in outer space. But other than that, it's exactly the same.
Right. The problem is, I don't know the difference between leasing and financing a new car either.
Well, it's not rocket science. Here, let me show you. Leasing a car is like agreeing to rent it for a fixed term of 3 to 5 years. You pay a deposit, you make monthly payments, and at the end of the term, you return the car and can start the process over again with a new car. Financing a car means buying it with the help of an auto loan. You pay a deposit, you make monthly payments, and once the loan is paid back, you own the car. In general, leasing payments are lower than financing payments.
Whoa. Leasing means I get a brand new spaceship every few years and payments are lower? Sign me up.
Ha, not so fast, Space Cadet. You need to understand that your monthly payments are designed differently depending on whether you're leasing or financing. When you're buying a vehicle, your monthly payment goes to repaying your lender plus interest. Once the loan is paid back, your payments stop and you own the vehicle. Unlike leasing, where your leaser owns the car and you continue to pay monthly the entire time you're leasing.
So, if I lease a vehicle, what exactly am I paying for if I don't get to own it?
Good question. You're not paying for the entire car when you lease. You're paying for the value you use up during the time you're driving it. So, if you're leasing a vehicle that costs $21,000 new, and the leaser estimates that it'll be worth $10,000 at the end of your lease term, your payment will be calculated from that difference, plus some interest to sweeten the deal for the leaser.
So that's how lease payments are always able to look so good.
Right. In the short term, based on monthly payments alone, it's cheaper to lease than to finance. But once you've paid back your auto loan, that changes because you no longer have to make monthly payments. Plus, you get the benefit of any residual value if you decide to sell or trade in your car after some time. Of course, there are other factors that can influence the value over time. When you own a car, you assume responsibility for major repairs down the road, whereas leased cars are well covered by a warranty. But leasing can come with all sorts of surcharges like mileage overages, excessive wear fees, and leased cars often have higher insurance rates too. It all comes down to what's important to you. Some people prefer to drive a new model every few years, even if that means limiting their mileage. Others prefer the freedom of ownership and being able to drive as much as they want and customize their vehicle however they want. What sounds good to you?
Okay, I'm sold. For me, financing is definitely the way to go. How much does this baby go for?
$21 billion.
On second thought, I can't even do the whole space travel thing because I'm allergic to stars. Okay, well, how much does this spacesuit go for?
$25 million.
Just the helmet.
$6 million.
This random tube thing.
$1.5 million.
Is there anything in here that's in my price range at all?
We have freeze-dried ice cream in the gift shop.
Sold!
All right. Excuse me. All right, so that is kind of a brief overview of the difference between leasing and move this over here, leasing and buying. I always grew up with buying. Nobody in neither of my parents ever leased a car. I wasn't really familiar with what a leased car was. It was just you bought a car. You bought a car. So you may not be even familiar with what the difference is. They're the same but different. So in the same way, I say a credit union and a bank are the same but different, like a public school and a private school are the same but different. Leasing a car and buying a car, the same but different. You know, the car looks the same. The car is the exact same car, but it's the behind the scenes stuff that's a little different. So the basics of leasing is like renting a car for an extended period of time. You're only paying for a portion of the car. You lease the car for a fixed term. I'm going to have this car for 2 years, 3 years. It says 2 to 4, but generally I've seen 2 to 3 years. I can't think of anyone who's had a 4-year lease. You still got to pay an initial deposit. You know, if you buy a car, sometimes you can do that 0% down, but you got to put a deposit down. And you make monthly payments. You have a car payment, just like you were to buy the car, you're still making a car payment. When you lease, you're paying for the value of the car for that entire time of 2 to 4 years, right? Whereas a finance, the basics of financing, and when we say financing, that means getting a loan for the vehicle, getting a loan for it instead of being able to pay for it in, $3,000 cash or $10,000 cash. Financing is buying a car through a loan, whether that loan is through the credit union, through GM Financial, through, the dealership. Loan terms are usually 5 years, 3 to 5 years for a really expensive loan, like a $200,000 RV that might give you 7 or 8 years to pay it off. But generally it's about 3 to 5 years. An initial deposit is often required, but you might be able to get a deal where you can put 0 down. And your monthly payments, you're making monthly payments, you have a loan payment, goes towards your total ownership of the vehicle. So you are paying for the entire vehicle, and each payment is giving you a little more ownership of it. The pros and cons, again, like public school and private school, which one's better? Well, it's which one's better for you and which one's better for your family. So like I said, what worked for my family, we always bought cars, but my cousins, my aunt and uncle, my uncle worked for Ford, and they seemed to have a brand new car every time I turned around. And I thought they were buying new cars all the time, but they were leasing. So some families, it works good one way, some another. What are the differences? So with leasing, you don't own the vehicle. It's not yours. Now, colloquially in speech, you say, oh yeah, we can take my car, or all right, yeah, I'll drive everyone. I mean, it's your car in that sense, but you do not own the vehicle. You only get to drive it, have it in your possession for those 2 years or those 3 years. After that, you turn it in, you give it back, you turn it in, you don't have it anymore. A car loan's usually about 5 years. Get a lease, usually about 2 to 3 years. So it's half the time. A pro, you get a new car every couple of years. I mean, who doesn't want a new car, right? New fancy car every time a new car comes out every couple of years. However, when you buy a car, you own the car. It's literally your car. While you are making payments, the finance company also owns it. I mean, as long as you are still making payments, the bank or the credit union still has ownership of the vehicle. But when you make that final payment, it's your car. You can drive across the country with it. You can leave it in your backyard. You can sell it to someone else. You can do whatever you want with it. It's your car. And it kind of depends on people's relationships with their cars. Some people, it's just a mode of transportation. Just give me a car. Just give me the most basic thing. I just need to get from place A to B. Whereas other people who have, a really long commute, or they're in their cars all the time, it's really important. It's like a second home, almost, what their vehicle is. Depreciation. Depreciation means losing value, right? If you, for instance, buy a brand new holiday Barbie and it's still in the box and it's worth $100. Well, once you take that Barbie out of the box and you start playing with it and brush the hair and change the clothes, and, a year or two goes by, and then you put that Barbie doll next to one that's still in the box. Well, the one that's been played with looks played with. It doesn't look brand new anymore, and it doesn't have as much value. You wouldn't be able to sell this played with Barbie for as much as you would sell the new one that's still in the box. Vehicles, cars or motor vehicles in general, lose their value very quickly. The price of a brand new car, you are literally paying the price of a brand new car. If you were to buy a 2021 or a 2022 versus a 2023 of that exact same car, the 2023 will be significantly higher simply by nature of, well, it's brand new. It's brand new. It has that shine, that new car smell. That's going to be real expensive. As soon as you own that car, as soon as you drive away from the dealership, that is no longer a brand new car. Right? I mean, it's new to you, but someone's driving it. It's being played with, right? So if you bring the car back, if you were to sell the car, it's not as pretty. It's not as nice as the, brand new car, kind of still in the box. So vehicles within the first few years lose a lot of value, right? You buy a car for 20 grand, 5 years later, you might only be able to sell it for 10 grand. They lose value. So a typical vehicle will be worth about half of its sale price in 4 or 5 years. So exactly what I was saying. If you bought it for 20 grand, 5 years later, you might only be able to sell it for 10 grand. It loses a lot of value. So if you get a new car every 2 to 3 years, well, you don't really have to worry about it losing value, because you're always going to replace it with something of value. A financed car, your car, well, I own it, I want it, it belongs to me, but now it's worth a whole lot less. I just finished, let's say I have a 5-year loan, right? And on that 60th month, that last payment, I made that final payment. And if the car was 20 grand, including interest, I probably paid, I don't know, let's say 22,000 total. Well, I just paid 22,000 and I'm done. And if I turn around and want to sell it today, you're telling me I can only sell it for 10,000? So I'm kind of like losing $10,000. So if you do not plan on keeping that vehicle for a very long time, for 10, 15, for a long time, you plan on only having it a few years, then leasing may be the way to go, because cars lose a lot of value in the first few years. Payments. This is a big one. A lot of times when you are looking at car ads, online or in the paper, they got the circular with all these cars, and you'll see, as low as $299, as low as $199. And you're thinking, wow, that's not bad. I can afford $199 for a new Expedition. That doesn't seem bad. Those are leasing prices. They always put the lease prices because it's cheaper than the buying prices. And you think, well, I can afford $199. So you go into the dealership and you say, I'd like that Expedition that has the $199 payments. And they're like, oh, well, that's not if you buy it. That's if you lease it. If you buy it, it's, $500 payments. So since you are only using the vehicle for a short period of time, you don't get to keep it. You are not paying for the whole vehicle. So in a situation where you'd be paying probably about $300 a month for a leased vehicle, that same vehicle, if you were to purchase it, your monthly payment would be $500. So it's significantly more. The payments are much less because you're not buying the whole car. If you are someone who buys a new car every few years, every 3 or 4 or 5 years, you get yourself a new car, well, then you might as well lease, because you're making a car payment that whole time. If you're the type of person who holds on to a car for 10 years, 10, 15 years, drives it till it doesn't go anymore, well, then you're getting 10, 15 years of no payments. You're certainly getting value out of it. So it depends how long you plan on keeping the vehicle, whether you're willing to pay for it and you can sell it later, or you don't get anything to show for it. You have nothing at the end of, 3 years, but you paid less. Customization. This is a big one too. This one is probably, this one and one more thing we'll get to are probably what has kept me most from not leasing. Is you're borrowing the car, you're renting the car. So you don't get to change it. You don't get to, put a lift kit on it, or add tint to the windows, or put in a new radio, CD player, or, a trailer hitch, anything. The car is as is, and you are just borrowing it. Imagine if you rented a car for the day and you brought it back and said, well, I made it blue. You can't do that. So if you purchase your car, even while you are still making payments, you can make any modifications you want. I used to have a Jeep, a lifted Jeep with big tires, and, had a snorkel on the front. I loved off-roading. So I want to be able to change something, to do something to my vehicle, to upgrade to a nicer air filter, or upgrade to a more powerful transmission. Why would you bother to upgrade to a more powerful transmission? Why would you spend the money if I'm just going to be giving this car back? Right? So new systems, exhaust systems, tint, you can't do anything to it. If you don't mind, if you're like, hey, it's a new car and it's gorgeous the way it is, well, then okay. But keep in mind, if you're someone who likes to put stickers on the back, if you want to put bumper stickers on it, you better buy the car. Mileage. This is the other one. Customization and mileage are I would say, the two things that have kept me from leasing. As a rule, leasing or a leased car has a certain number of miles. You kind of purchase a certain number of miles with it. It's assumed that typically 10,000 miles per year, give or take. The average person drives 10,000 miles a year. So if you are leasing a car for 2 years, you are paying for 20,000 miles. And if you return the car with, let's say, 25,000 miles, you have to pay a large amount for those 5,000 miles extra. There's a limited amount of miles on a leased car. It is not the car that you take on road trips. It is not the car that you go up north with every weekend in the summer. You can go to work. You may even be able to get a 13,000, a 12,000 mile a year vehicle. Maybe you drive less one year so you can drive more the next. But keep in mind, if you're not paying attention, if you're like, yeah, 10,000 miles a year, that's fine. But then you get a new job that's 20 miles farther away from where you live, and that's an extra 40 miles a day. I mean, you're going to have to really look into that math. Is that going to significantly raise the amount of miles I'm going to drive? And if it's 15 to 30 cents for every mile, and remember I said, what if I drove 5,000 miles? Ooh. Whereas if it's your car, you can drive it as much as you want. You can drive it across the country. I love being able to take my car across the country. I love being able to just load up the back. I've driven to North Carolina a couple times. I've driven to New York. I mean, each car I've had, I've taken on road trips. I want to be able to do that. I don't want to have to worry, oh my God, am I getting a scratch on it? Oh, don't let anything happen to it. Oh, don't get it too dusty. No, this is my car. Let's drive over the curb, let's get it a little dirty. You can drive as many miles as you want. My current job, financial educator, I do these workshops virtually, but most of the time I'm going into the classroom, going into the school. So I go to, Livonia, Clarenceville, all the way over in Wayne, to Madison Heights, Hazel Park, Royal Oak, in Oakland, all the way to Macomb, Shelby Township, Romeo in Macomb Township. So, and then on the other side to, Clarkston and Waterford. So I drive around a lot. So I know for a fact that I'm going to be driving around a lot. I don't know exactly how much, and I don't know exactly where, but I know that I'm, at least for my job only, going to be driving a lot. If you have a job like a realtor, you'll be driving a lot, depending on your type of job. If you know there's going to be extended driving, or you don't want to feel limited in your driving, then maybe the financing the car. People will drive cars over 200 and 1,000 miles sometimes. I mean, 200,000 miles is kind of almost like a death mark. That's about as high as you'll go. But hey, these well-made trucks, they'll go even farther. They'll go even farther than that. But it's up to you. Are you the type of person that's like, yeah, I'll drive my car into the ground. I'm going to keep driving this car till I can't anymore. My car is paid off. I paid off my car. It's a 2012, so it's paid off, but I don't want to get rid of it. I like it. I like my car a lot. It's my car. It's my car that I picked out. So I like it. I have a closeness to it. It's my comfort. I don't want to get rid of it. Whenever I've sold a car in the past, they break down in tears. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's like losing a friend. So if you have that, real relationship with your car, and you really find that connection, then make it your car. If you don't have that feeling, or you really don't drive around that much, older people, even if they don't work anymore, maybe they go to the grocery store and some doctor's appointment and that's it. You don't really need a new car. You don't need, feel free to lease, have small mileage. You said it would be about 500 FM. Is it make it? Question about the payments. So as an example, it was showing, it didn't even give the price of the car. So it didn't show the price of the car, but it was showing that if the lease payment was calculated to be about $300 a month, then for that same vehicle, it would be about $500. Now, depending on the vehicle, I mean, it could be $200, $400, it could be $150, $300, but it's just an example to show that not quite twice as much, but significantly higher. It's not like it's going to be $50 more. It's going to be significantly higher if you are purchasing it versus a lease.
Colleen, doesn't the down payment amount and the monthly payment amount also depend upon your credit history?
Yes, yes. We're getting to that for sure. So yes. Let's see, what is this next one? Oh, maintenance, wear and tear. Okay, maintenance, wear and tear. Again, are you a mechanic? Do you not mind changing your own oil? You wash the car in your own driveway, you rotate the tires on your own, or are you like, I don't want anything to do with that. I'm not changing my own oil. I'm not changing my own wipers. I don't even like washing my own car. If you own the car, if you finance and you purchase the car, everything's on you, right? You may get a warranty, new cars are going to come with a warranty of a year or two. Something goes wrong with the car, you bring it in, it gets fixed. But once that warranty ends, after 2 years or so, the transmission goes, you get a nail in the tire, a rock hits the windshield, anything like that, you got to fix it. So that's why you see cars, driving around with a big dent in the door or missing a side view mirror, because they're like, well, I can't afford to fix that right now. If you lease a car, basic maintenance would be covered, right? Basic maintenance of like an oil change, rotate the tires. You don't have to pay for that. You can bring that in, bring it into where you got it, and they'll take care of that. But they're also assuming that you're bringing back this car a couple years later, more or less in the condition that they gave it to you. It's only been a couple years. The car should really look slightly used, right? Excessive wear and tear. Let's say you bring the car back with some bumps and dents. Let's say it's got a broken window. Let's say it's got the side mirror missing. Oh, you're going to pay for that. That is not, well, I had a good run, here's the car. No, if it's not the way that they gave it to you, you need to make it that way. So you will be charged you can't just beat it up like an old soda can and return it. You are responsible for the, the appearance and the upkeep of the car. If it's something like your tire blows, yeah, you're going to have to pay for a new tire. It's not likely they'll give you a free tire. If something goes wrong in the engine, it's probably still under warranty. If you have maybe a 3 or 4 year lease, you may end up having to pay for some of that. But as a rule, you will be paying much more for maintenance, for wear and tear on a car that belongs to you, because you're going to have it for longer. You're going to have it during that stage where things start to kind of break down. If you give the car back after 2 years, it should really still be working pretty good. Okay, now a sample comparison. Now we're getting into numbers. Now we're getting into facts and figures. And yes, a couple of days ago, we talked about credit score. And you're walking around the dealership and you did your budget and you're like, well, I came up with $400 a month. I felt like amongst all my bills and income and expenses that I can afford a $400 a month car payment. So that's what I'm looking for, right? And let's say $15,000 car. So looking around, and I find it. Oh, there it is. There's my beautiful car. Let's say it's that Expedition. Oh, I love that car. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I can get it for $400 a month. The guy at the dealership crunches some numbers and he's like, ooh, you've got a C credit or D credit. Well, it was gonna be like 2.99% interest, but because you have such a low credit score and you seem risky, and we don't want to have to chase you down for payments, we're going to have you pay 9%. So instead of paying an extra $500 interest, you'll pay $1,500 interest approximately. So suddenly you're thinking, well, wait, now the whole car's $2,000 more expensive. Well, now my payments have gone up, or this kind of messes with the whole thing. It's not just the price of the car, but your credit and how much interest you're going to be paying on the car absolutely affects the total price, affects the total amount you're borrowing. So let's look at this. Same car, 48 months, 4 years. So this person is going to lease the car for 4 years, brand new car. At the end of 4 years, they're giving it back. This person's purchasing a car. So 4-year loan, make payments for 4 years. And at the end of 4 years, they own that car. They get to keep it. Interest rate, it's the same. 4%, actually right now, that's pretty good. You used to be able to get a car loan for, 1.8, 1.9, with really, really good credit. Interest rates have gone up. So 4% is pretty good, but you're going to be paying interest regardless. Selling price, $21,000. So we're looking at a car where the original, the MSRP, the sticker price. How do you know if the dealership will play with your credit like a lot of massing for cones? Okay, we'll get to that too. It's a $21,000 car. Okay, so you picked out the car you like, and now you're trying to figure out, how do I get it? Well, taxes, you don't pay any taxes on a lease because you're borrowing it, right? Sales tax, you pay sales tax on a sale, right? You pay 6% sales tax at the store. You got to pay 6% sales tax on the car. And sometimes people forget that. And look at that, that's $1,000. That's $1,000 of taxes. Did you even remember that you have to pay taxes on the car? Title and registration, it's going to be for both. You got to get a license plate. You got to, register the car with your name. So far, we're pretty similar, about the same price. Now, base payment, oh, you know what? I forgot. I'm sorry. It's showing here. Terms range from 24 to 84 months. The interest rates can vary. This interest rate is extremely important. There's a couple ways to make sure you get the best interest rate. You can come to the credit union first. Hi, credit union. I'm interested in getting a car. I've done some numbers and it looks like I can afford about $400 a month. So how much would I be approved for if I applied for a loan? Right? Because you can apply for 20,000 and they're going to come back and say, well, we'll loan you 30 if you want, or we'll loan you only 15. But based on your credit, the credit union's going to come back and say, well, we would loan you up to this amount of money and we would give you this interest rate. Let's just say 4% for the sake of argument, 4%. And you're like, okay, all right. So if I finance the car through this credit union, I'll get 4%. Good to know. Now I'm going to go to the dealership and I'm going to start looking at cars, right? And I'm looking at cars, and I sit down with the guy at the dealership and he is trying to get me to do the financing through him, which is just, I would make the payments to him instead of making the payments to the credit union. And he says, oh, I can get you a deal, and types up this stuff. And he says, all right, I can get you into this car at 5.5% interest. Now, if that was your first day, if this is your first stop, if you just pulled into the dealership and you're like, I think I'm going to start looking around for cars. And you sit down and he's like, I can get it for 5.5. That's the best deal you're going to get. And you're like, okay, 5.5 sounds pretty good. But in this case, you already went to the credit union. You already found out what you were pre-approved for. So you know for a fact that you can get 4% here. So you have there's no incentive. Why would you sign up to get the loan through the dealership if it's going to be higher? Now there is a chance. It's not likely, but there is a chance, because when the dealership comes up with this number, they're sending the request out to multiple lending institutions, right? It's saying, Colleen wants to buy this car for this much. What's the interest rate you're willing to give her? And he kind of sends that out. And then within a few minutes, it gets a response. And he looks at whatever the lowest rate that I'm offered, and that's the one he's supposed to present, right? From everything that I've been offered, I see that 5.5 is the least. So, that's the one. He could say, well, actually 3.5. I see that Genesis Credit Union is willing to give you a 3.5% interest. Well, now you got a choice. Now you can say, well, I mean, I was planning on going to my credit union and getting the 4%, but man, you can get me 3.5. That's even a little bit less. So that's just comparison shopping. Now, it's not common, but you will see most of the time the number that dealership offers you is going to be a little bit higher than if you were to go to the credit union first, because what's the dealership getting out of it, right? If the credit union is going to offer you 3.5%, I'm going to tell you that they offer 4%, because 3.5 is going to go to the credit union that the loan is through, and 0.5 is going to go to us, the dealership. So I can't see his computer screen. You can't see their computer screen. He's telling you, this is the lowest rate I can get you, and you can take it or leave it. But do you know that that is in fact the lowest rate? Are you positive that they didn't tack on another 0.5% or another percent for their dealership? Now, again, it's a personal choice. Going through the dealership is convenient, super convenient. You walk in the dealership, I like this car, I'm going to buy it today. Am I approved? Great. Sign the papers and walk out. Boom, you're done. Some people are only interested in convenience and quickness, and I just don't want to be bothered. But then they're probably paying a little bit more. Or if you comparison shop, what kind of interest rate will you give me? What kind of interest rate will you give me? And then you make sure not only you're getting a good deal on the car, but you're getting a good deal on the interest rate. Taxes are paid upfront. Taxes are paid upfront. And again, a lot of people kind of forget about that there's taxes included. Lease payments are typically lower than finance payments because you're only paying a portion. So, for example, it's showing here that this person gave $290 to start. They're paying $14 in taxes a month. They're not paying taxes for the entire sale of the car. They're kind of paying taxes on renting the car. So they're just paying little pieces of it. So they're paying $305 a month to use and borrow that car for 4 years. Now this person is driving the car for 4 years, and they're paying $505. Now, at the end of at the end of 4 years, this person has spent a lot more money, right? The lease and vehicle, when you turn the lease in, there's still another $10,000 left. So if for some reason you drive the car for 4 years and instead of returning it, you say, you know what, I really like this car. I didn't think I would, but I really like this car. I want to keep this car. I was going to lease another one, but can I just buy this car, the car that I'm already driving? Well, that's possible, but you didn't buy it. You've only been renting it. So if you say, yes, I'd like to buy this car, there's still a whole nother $10,000 that you would have to pay in order to keep the car. So at the end of 4 years, you have paid $300 a month and you have nothing in front of you. right? You paid that money, you got use out of it, but now you have no car. And you've got to start from the beginning again. And you got to, okay, I need a car loan. Okay, I need to make a car payment. At the end of 4 years, after paying $500 a month, this person paid a lot of money, but now they own the vehicle. They have it. They can sell it and they can earn 10 grand, or they can keep driving this car for 10 years. And that's 10 years of not making car payments. I mean, car payments are really expensive. Not only is this person paying a $500 car payment, but simply because the car, it's called, has a lien on it, means there's a loan. It means someone else paid for the whole thing and you're paying them back. So anytime you're getting a loan for a car, loan for a motorcycle, loan for a house, it means there's a lien on the house. If there's a lien on the car, you have to get full coverage insurance, car insurance. You got to get the top level full coverage insurance. Same thing with lease. Once it is not a loan anymore, once you own the car free and clear, after this 4 years, this person can keep the top insurance, or they can lower their car insurance. So now, not only are they no longer making a car payment, but they're also making a cheaper car insurance payment. Whereas this person is going to go back to paying $300 a month for the next 4 years. Whereas this person's paying nothing for the next 4 years, right? It's, what do you want to end up with? You know, your job. If you have a very secure job, you have no reason to think, I'm not going to be here in a couple years. Of course, I'm going to work here in 2 years. Of course, I'm going to work here in 3 years. Well, then you probably have the mindset that you'll be able to afford a lease. But if you're not completely confident in your job, or you're like, I might leave, I don't know if I'll be here for 4 or 5 years. Well, maybe you should finance, because you want to end up with something. If you lose your job and you have no car, now you're in a really bad spot. But if you lose your job, but at least you have your car, keep in mind, do I want to no longer make payments? What am I working towards? Am I working towards a spot in my life where I don't have to make car payments anymore? And then I can put that money towards other things. Or am I working towards a spot where I'm always able to drive a new car? And that's just something cool about me, is I always have a new car. It depends. So don't be fooled by how close these final prices are. If you chose to buy the lease vehicle at the end, you would pay another $10,000 on the spot, or take out an additional loan, which would be an additional $600 to $700 in interest. And then you got to pay an acquisition fee, you got to pay security deposit. But what if you turn the lease vehicle in? You've paid that $300 a month, right? You've saved, you purposely got the cheaper option of only paying $300 a month, but now you've turned it in with 5,000 extra miles or 2,000 extra miles. Well, now not only are you left with no car, but you have to pay a few more $1,000 for the car that you don't even get to keep. So this is an example only. Oh, and that's it. Most people, I shouldn't say most, a lot of people are kind of car buying people or car leasing people. You can certainly buy a car and then lease a car and then buy a car and lease a car. But someone who really likes leasing cars will generally do it time after time after time. You know, they like that new car. They figure, you know, if I'm going to buy a new car every few years, then I'm going to have a car payment anyway. So why don't I just have a lower car payment? Makes sense. But if you're someone who's like, no, I love this car, I want to keep this car for years, you know, I want my kids to grow up in this car, well, then buy the car. Then you can keep that car for years and years and sell it for a profit later in the future. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Colleen, our guest asked the question of how do you know if the dealership won't play with your credit score like a lot of them do and keep asking on loans for you? In other words, I interpret this question as, how do you know when you go into the dealership that the credit score that the dealer is saying you have is the actual credit score that you have so that you can qualify for the loan?
Well, there's a couple things. If you go to the credit union first, even if you go to a bank, but if you go to a financial institution first, say, how much am I pre-approved for? And they'll tell you, oh, you have a 670, you have a 720. So now you have that base. And when you go into the dealership and they crunch the numbers and they say, oh, you only have a 620, you're like, it doesn't sound right, because I happen to know that I just went, this morning and I have a much higher credit score. Now, if you had a 670 and the dealership is telling you you have a 700 or a 650, that may not be wrong. One may be pulling Experian, one may be pulling TransUnion. They aren't necessarily going to be the exact same number, right? It could be a little off. It shouldn't be wildly off. Again, if you have a 670 and they say, oh, you've got a 620, that's pretty far off. I would question that, but it should be similar to what you've received either on Credit Karma, or maybe your credit card tells you your credit score, or you've gotten pre-approved. As far as the best deal, the best interest rate, right? I mean, they can say, oh, you have a 700, I'm going to give you our best deal, 5%. Is that the best they can offer you? You don't really know, right? Like I said, they could have been offered 4.5%, and they're just tacking another 0.5% on as profit, for themselves, for the dealership. So it's up to you to say, well, I'm going to think about it, okay, 3% here and 5%. I'm going to go home and think about it, and then I'll come back. Dealerships are very, very sales. Of course, they're trying to sell cars, but what can I do to get you into this car? How can I get you into this car? What if I take $5 off? What if I wash it first? What if I put some gas in it? I mean, it's really relentless of, you're not going to get a better deal than this. You better not turn this down. Oh, are you sure? The car is going to be gone tomorrow. So a lot of tactics, and I guess we're kind of getting into the buying a new car. But don't necessarily take that first word as gospel. Okay, thank you. You said I have a 620. You said I'm offered 5%. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to go to this other dealership. I'm going to look at a car there. I'm going to, see what they have to offer, see if that's any better or worse or the same. I shouldn't say most dealers. Privately owned dealerships, like Mike's Cars, those are the ones that are maybe slightly less trustworthy, that they don't have a parent company, looking over them, making sure they're following all these regulations. I was young and dumb, and I bought a car from a private owner or private dealership years ago, and I was like, wow, it looks the engine, new engine. No, they spray painted it silver. They spray painted it. Oh, look at the shiny new silver muffler, completely rusted out. Car was in terrible shape, had to return it. They had rolled back the miles, all these things. But it was a terrible situation because I had bought the car. I bought the car. Now it's my problem. It's not their problem. It was, but now I bought it. I signed the papers. So all of those conversations, new car shouldn't really have anything wrong with it. But yeah, have conversations, ask, well, you're offering me 5%. Who is that from? Which credit union? What are some other offers you have? How long is that offer going to be available for? Ask around, ask your friends, what's a trustworthy dealership that you've gone to? There's a dealership by my house that I used to go to to get my oil changed, to get all my work done. Super nice. I thought they were so great. There was a little rewards program. Every like fourth or fifth oil change was free. It's still a Ford dealership, but it's got new ownership, but you know, it's a different name, and it is a totally different place. Still functions, they still do the work, but I just don't get the same feeling from them. So ask, you know, what kind of sense did you get when you bought your car? Or where did you get your car? You know, who seems very helpful? You know, that's using those recommendations, and people love referrals. If you say, oh, Miss Toni Cureton told me to come see. Oh, I love Miss Cureton. Oh, how wonderful. Oh, I'll throw in an extra wax for you, you know, just so I'd say do your research, ask a lot of questions, comparison shop. And I believe I mentioned it last week or last time, I'm not sure. Pulling your credit report. When someone pulls your report for an application and says you're eligible for this much, it's called a hard hit, right? It pulls some points, it lowers your score just a little bit. So in theory, the more you ask people to pull your report, the more points you go down. So why would I want a comparison shop? If you are doing this at the same time, right? You're shopping in the same month. You're probably shopping in the same 2 weeks, right? And I have 3 or 4 different credit pulls from 4 different dealerships, but it's all within 2 weeks. It's only going to count as one. It's going to count as one pull. It's within the same time period. It's not going to count as 4 separate hard pulls. We want you to comparison shop. We want you to look around. Even if it goes into the next month, well, maybe it'll lower a little bit one month and a little bit the next month. But that's okay. Even if you're looking for a home, I mean, if you're spending $200,000 on a home, 0.5% interest is pretty important. So you do want to be able to comparison shop for rates. So I certainly encourage that.
Also, I want to add, again, as Colleen suggested, it is important that you do your research, your due diligence before you even walk into the dealership. You should never, ever walk into a car dealership wondering if you qualify. You should know that information before you enter in. And you can know that information if you monitor your credit reports and your scores on a regular basis. Also, if you pay your bills on time. These are the things that they look at when they determine whether or not you qualify or are eligible to receive a car loan. So knowing this information in advance, along with what kind of vehicle do you want? What year do you want? Do you want new? Do you want used? You know, how many miles do you want on it? These are things that you should decide before you enter in that dealership. Because once you enter in that dealership, conversation can become, you know, very fast and swift, and you could miss some things. But if you have already, I want a Chevy Equinox, the year 2020 or 2023. If you have all that information in front of you, including your credit report and the scores showing that you've been paying your bills on time, when you enter in the dealership, it won't be a question of if you get the car, if you qualify for the car, because you will, because you know you pay your bills on time. You know what your credit score is. Now it becomes a question of negotiating your monthly payment, again, based upon your payment history and your credit score.
And the dealership is going to try to convince you that you can afford more than you can.
Exactly.
Oh, you're actually approved for $35,000.
Exactly.
Let's look at the double Equinox, and you're like, no.
Exactly.
I said 20. So
that's why you should know all of this information, how much you are prepared to spend. You need to know and make a decision on that before you get to the dealership. And determining which dealership is better than another, well, we can't really give recommendations or say this one is good and that one isn't. What we can say is that if you're buying a new car, then most dealerships that sell brand new vehicles usually guarantee and certify the warranties that are being provided on the vehicle, which means that you probably will not have any maintenance or repair problems. If you're buying used vehicles, again, we can't recommend one dealership over another. I will say this though, you have a better chance of purchasing a more reliable vehicle if you purchase from a certified pre-owned dealership, a dealership that sells certified pre-owned vehicles. When you see that, what they're saying is that they're guaranteeing that the vehicle you're purchasing will not, require any repairs, especially immediate repairs, because the dealer has gone through and made sure that the vehicle runs and there are no problems with it. Now, again, like Colleen said, if you're going to private dealers where you see, they're smaller lots and they're individually owned, those are dealerships where you may encounter problems, especially if you don't take a mechanic with you when you go to look at your vehicle to ensure and guarantee you that there's nothing wrong with your vehicle. Also, if you're buying used, make sure you test drive. Don't take your friend, take someone who knows about how to repair a vehicle, an auto mechanic, one who can listen and tell you, hey, that knock you're hearing as you drive, that's not a good sound. You might not want to purchase that. People who have no expertise in car repair, they're useless when you go to the dealership. They're not helping you at all.
You're gonna have to repeat all of this on Friday when we do buy any used car.
So in answer to the question that you typed in the chat about whether or not that particular car dealership is good or not, I can't give you a recommendation, pro or con. I can just tell you that if you're buying a used car, then you're going to have to take a mechanic with you to make sure that that vehicle is sound, and you're going to have to test drive that vehicle to make sure that it's sound. And if you want to have the confidence of knowing that when you go to purchase your car, you will get a car, do your due diligence and your research to make sure that you check your credit report and your score before you walk in the door that way. Or like Colleen said, go to a credit union and get a pre-approved loan. And that, oh my God, you know how much power that gives you, because you walk in the door with that pre-approval from the credit union saying that $20,000 is what it is. And you eliminate them from adding additional charges because you're like, hey, I got a pre-approval for 20,000. So anything above that, you can just forget about. So that is something that you also want to strongly consider when you're purchasing a vehicle. You got any questions, any additional questions before we wrap this up? Good deal. Good deal. We're so glad.
All right. And just
Well,
a reminder that these are new cars. We're talking about brand new cars. I know
Yes.
we're not all necessarily in the place to buy a brand new car, but you can't lease a used car. So we're going to talk about used cars on Friday. This is only talking about brand new cars.
Exactly. So we'll see you Friday.
All right. I will
All
see you
right,
guys Friday.
everybody. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.